When you sent me packing down Green River Valley, I knew that if you couldn't, then no one would happen. Lost myself.
Hey there, this is Adam with Mile High Stash, the podcast that asks what 5 albums you would take to a remote Colorado cabin in the event of a zombie apocalypse. It's September 11th, and I want to honor those who died in the September 11th, 2001 attacks, and also in the wars that followed, as well as everyone affected by the Boulder area flooding that started on September 11th, 2013. I'll never forget that. That was a truly biblical experience, watching our streets here turn into rivers. Today, Courtney Whitehead of Bison is with us. He is my favorite Okie in Colorado, and it was great to sit down and discuss Courtney's 5 albums, his musical career, the new Bison record, 40 Grit, and even Courtney's childhood nickname, Chicken Gum. Today's episode is brought to you by Savory Cuisines, the best catering company in Colorado, led by the fabulous Bob Sargent. Savory provides world-class food for just about any event imaginable, everything from barbecue to sushi. And Bob and I are currently on a quest to bike the 25 toughest mountain passes in the Boulder area. So he's a great chef and also a great athlete and friend. All right, here's my chat with Courtney from Bison, which is celebrating the release of the new album 40 Grit at the Skylark Lounge in Denver on Friday, October 27th, with opening act, The Patty Fiasco.
Oh, your army is from my blood.
Looking for a professional Boulder, Colorado catering company with an excellent reputation for service and food? Savory Cuisines Catering works to provide the very best catering services in the Boulder and Denver metro areas by consistently delivering superior service, extensive menus, and unforgettable events. They use only the freshest and most flavorful ingredients prepared and served by their experienced and professional staff, led by the one and only Bob Sargent. Your party, wedding, or corporate event will sparkle with Savory's wide array of appetizers, entrees, and desserts. With 20 years in business here in Boulder, with exceptional high-quality service, Savory is the ideal catering company for your next event. Head to savorycuisines.com for more info.
I guess living the bad life, brother, feels too good.
Courtney Whitehead, how did you come up with the Bison name, and also, is it like the White Buffalo where that's you, Bison is you, or is it a band?
It started out with my thought of wanting it to be a band, kind of like the Drive-By Truckers,
Yeah.
that was like, or the band, like those were two of my things. So I always thought I'd be in a band with multiple songwriters, multiple singers kind of thing. But that's hard to do. That's why a lot of people don't do it.
Yeah.
I'm Bison, but I've been pretty lucky. The guys I have with me now have been with me for rhythm section 5 years, and the guitar player now has been with me for over a year. So I'm lucky about that. Mm-hmm. But the name comes from like an old folk song, and essentially talking about the land run. Me being from Oklahoma, that was a pretty big part of our childhood education. But one of the lines is bison been bleached out in the sun, and talking about what they're seeing on their travels. And I was like, oh man, that really hit home. And I held on to it for a long time. I was like, when and if I ever have a band, I want that to be the name. And by the time it came around to having a band, I was like, well, nobody had it, which I couldn't believe, especially in the Americana alt country roots rock world. Nobody had that name, or really a lot close to it, And so I took it. But now It's a big dog treat. So if you Google it, it's like our band and all these dog treat companies.
Maybe you can do some commercials, you know?
Yeah, well, I should get sponsored or something, or publishing from something like that for sure. Yeah.
Do you have bisonbone.com?
I do.
Yeah. Maybe that could be lucrative if they want it. You know?
One of these days, I'll just start sell that and just start going under my name, and maybe that'll pay for a new record.
Yeah. So you're an Okie.
Yep.
How did you end up in Denver?
The short story is music. The scene, it was super cheap. I loved it out here. It felt like out west. Being from Oklahoma, there's not a lot of close cities nearby, so I got to choose. Mm-hmm. It was going to be Denver or Dallas or Austin or St. Louis, something like that, and in that area, Kansas City. Yeah. But I came out here for a week and went to a festival in Steamboat and loved it. It was gorgeous, super affordable, and in the 2010s era, the music scene was killer out here, and I was like, that's what I want to do. And I go out there and get an affordable place to live and go hike and find some good musicians out here. And it wasn't Nashville, and it wasn't Austin, and it wasn't LA, and it felt like its own thing. And it's been real good to me.
And it sounds like that era, which I remember well. I remember when the Larimer Lounge was the only thing in Rhino, and the Metal Art downstairs, and then a bunch of warehouses, and that one convenience store.
Right.
And so it sounds like that was also a time where you were able to meet a lot of people who are now super famous, but back then they were playing the Larimer and the Metal Art.
Yeah, I didn't feel like it felt like community. It felt easy, and we were playing Metal Arc. We played Larimer really early on, and me moving here, and a lot of people that have are doing okay now. We're around, and that like
the Lumineers even.
Yeah, I mean, even moving into Baker, the first day I moved here, I went and had lunch at Sputnik, and it was me sitting in a bar, and one person comes and sits beside me, and another person beside him, and that was Aaron Collins from Tom Collins and Nathaniel Rayliff.
Yeah.
And we had played the High Dive, I guess, right around that time. And so it was easy conversation. What are you doing? Who are you? What are you doing here? I was like, well, so-and-so in this band, we just played the High Dive, and I think I'm going to be here for a while.
Yeah.
So
now Nathaniel is an owner or the owner or co-owner of the Skylark, and you play there a lot.
Yeah, it's our home club now. Our buddy books it. Our other buddy manages it and is part owner in it, and Nathaniel's part owner, and the sound's great. It feels good. It's a good deal. Yeah. They treat us well, and that's usually where we're hanging out if we're not playing anyway. So that's a lot of the bands in my genre are kind of playing there now. Yeah. It feels good.
Did you see this recent interview where Lance Armstrong went to the Skylark and interviews Nate at the Skylark?
I listened to that interview.
What did you think of that?
I thought it's been a while now, so it's hard to remember, but it was entertaining.
It was surreal to me as a cyclist and a cycling fan, and then obviously a music fan and someone who knows the Denver music scene, Colorado music scene. That was like all of these things coming together in a surreal way. Especially, it was just Lance being like, thank you so much, I'm such a big fan, and talking about Nathaniel's career. And then at one point, like 3/4 of the way into their 90-minute conversation, Nathaniel goes, I know that about you. I've seen that movie about you. And that. And Lance goes, you saw the movie about me? And Nathaniel goes, yeah. And Lance kind of pauses and he goes, you probably know I haven't got away with much in my life. And I was just I'm really salty about that whole thing. I wish he'd been like, "Thank you for still sitting down with me here." That would have been a classy kind of thing to say.
I was trying to be diplomatic earlier, but I think you said everything
Yeah.
I could have said, and especially somebody from your background, I could see you being like really into that, and then something like turning you off in some way like that.
Well, I've done Ride the Rockies 3 times, and they always let Lance ride with us for like a day or two and then speak at night at like a little seminar. And I'm like, what? Why? What? Just say you're not allowed at this stuff. That's how I feel about
Right. No, I can appreciate that.
Anyway, you have 2 full-length albums and 1 on the way. Is this correct?
2 full lengths, a couple of EPs, and then 1 on the way. That's getting mastered right now. Is a 5-song EP.
And the first one is from like 2015.
First full length came out 2017.
Okay, that one out of the gate is like Drive By Truckers. It's almost like punk. I mean, the first song is like pretty upbeat and just raging, you know. And is it the same woman who's done a lot of background vocals for you?
No, that was Brianna Strott. She did that one with us, and the EP, and then the following full length. So she did that. Jess Parsons sang on the last EP, and then Haley Hilmericks, who's the drummer in Blue Book now, does backup for 2 of the songs on this one, and then the guys do backup on a couple other ones. But the female backup she's doing on this one.
So tell me about your musical journey. Like, you know, you were born and raised, sounds like, around where Garth Brooks was a big deal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's all I like. We listen to classic rock, southern rock, and classic country, and what was on the radio. So Alan Jackson and Garth Brooks and that type of stuff. And you were talking about that first record being kind of more of a punk ethos, and it definitely was one because of just lack of experience, you know.
Yeah.
Same reason a lot of people do that.
But also, correct me if I'm wrong, everybody rebels.
Right.
So if you grew up in a town like Pittsburgh, maybe, where I'm from, and there was punk rock everywhere, maybe you would have been like, I'm going to make a country thing.
Yeah, well, all I knew, I grew up in a town of 6,500 people, so all I knew it was on mainstream radio. So it wasn't until I got to college that I realized, like, oh, there's so many levels in between. It's not nothing or Garth Brooks. You can, there's a lot of ways of doing this, and having reasons to do it for a long time. One of them, you know, there's plenty more than just being a gazillionaire and playing stadiums.
Yeah. And did you grow up in a musical family?
No, not at all. That more so just came from me. I don't know. I was always a kid, like a lot of our peers, that read the liner notes. You know, I'd have, when I was a kid, have buddies come over and we'd be trading baseball cards, but always listening to a full record and, you know, listen to this new thing or whatever. So that sports and music was always kind of intertwined. But no, my family is very sports oriented in that way, but not, and listen to music and like music. There was always music on in the garage or in the car, but none of them played. And I was always into sports, so I didn't start playing till, you know, as a teenager. Later in my teenage years.
You played football and baseball?
And basketball.
I was told that maybe you had a nickname when you were growing up, when you were playing sports.
There's a few. There's definitely a few, but I'm assuming the one you're talking about is a big one my buddies still will mention, because my parents come up here and spread all these small town stories of me growing up. But chicken gum.
Chicken gum?
Chicken gum.
Wow.
Yeah. That's just, you know, baseball's superstitious. So any championship game, any big game, my mom would always make fried chicken before the game, which to somebody they're like, well, probably should be eating something healthier before a game, right?
No, you're going to burn all those calories.
Yeah, exactly. And so it would that, and I'd always chew gum during the game. People would do seeds or whatever, but I'd always, I played third base, the hot corner, and always chewing gum. And so there was a game, a big game where I was playing really well, and my coach was just came up. He's chewing that chicken gum today. Yeah. He's got them both going, and it kind of stuck. So
I'm surprised you didn't go with that instead of Bison Bone for a band name.
I mean,
chicken gum.
Those kind of kept when I first started. Separation of church and state with sports and music.
Yeah. All right, so we might as well dive in with like two of your vinyl albums that you would bring to a remote Colorado cabin in the event of a zombie apocalypse.
This was way harder than I expected it to be, and it was a lot of fun to think about and try to navigate what direction I'm going to go in this thing and what rules and limitations I wanted to put on myself. Are these ones I actually have, or anything, and do I want it to reflect all the different musical styles I have? But I was like, I'm just going to go with like kind of the biggest influence. So J.J. Cale, Grasshopper being one of them, me being an Okie, and so that record I really like.
Nobody but you in my dreams.
He's from Oklahoma?
Yeah, Tulsa.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah. He's got a record called Okie.
Wow.
Yeah, and multiple songs that reference Tulsa. If you're ever, or like if you're ever in Oklahoma.
Most people know him, for cocaine, and they call me the Breeze.
Sure.
And then nothing else. Like they don't actually dive into his solo stuff.
I mean, he's got some pretty big records just on his own. But yeah, that don't get me in a conversation about him and Eric Clapton.
Yeah.
I'm going a tangent. J.J. Cale's always going to be my guy. So.
Well, I don't think J.J. Cale's ever had a racist white nationalist rant on stage. So.
No. So that's an easy one.
He comes out on top.
That's an easy one for sure. And then you said the second one we talked about earlier, Drive-By Truckers, Decoration Day. Yeah. That one just, like you're talking about, just people that were coming up that had pedal steel in their band, but also talking about class and politics in this way that when I was in college, it was really like a big part of my education, the South and the duality of the South, and a band like that, it was like blew my mind.
It's Decoration Day, and I knew the Hill Boys had put him away, but my daddy wasn't afraid. He said we'd fight till the last Lawson's last living day. I never knew how it all got started, a problem with Holland before.
We forget sometimes in our very divisive society right now that there are intellectual, liberal Southerners with Southern accents. You know what I mean? And Jason Isbell, I mean, that the title track is one of his best songs.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that guy is... you don't want to get in a word fight with him.
Yeah.
I mean, he's going to win every time. He's super talented, super funny, and perfect example of everything you just said. And I'm not, Oklahoma, what is it? It's not really the South. It's not really West or Southwest. It's kind of Midwest ethos. But,
right.
A lot of Southern ethos in there. But, I really relate to that. Coming from a small town in that part of the country where I grew up doing labor type work. My dad still does, but so I can really appreciate like the dualities of all of that, of being kind and aware and progressive in these ways, but still having that kind of hard work ethos.
Yeah. Well, that song, Decoration Day, Jason Isbell, I think, got in a lot of trouble with his family for writing because he wrote it from the perspective of the family that they had a rivalry with.
Right.
And it's an amazing song. Have you sung anything that like rankled your family?
I know. I think they're pretty aware, of my thoughts on it all. And I was one of the first ones in my family to graduate college. So just that right there, they go two ways of, well, he thinks he's better than us, or he's been around. And I think they appreciate that I've been around and have experiences. And I think they really like that and are rooting
Were they
for
mad
me
that you just left Oklahoma?
No, I don't think mad. I think obviously like going to miss out on a big part of my life, but I think that they wish that was something they had the opportunities to do or the perseverance to maybe do it or be uncomfortable and make some of those decisions. But they had us as young kids, so I don't think that was, they were 23 when they had me.
Yeah.
So I don't think that a lot of thought or options went into that. They're like, we're here, our family's here, and it's kind of what you do in the 80s, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm the only one in my family who's ever lived outside of Pittsburgh, and just the fact that I left was like, not only like, who do you think you are, but like, I remember when I told my mother that I was leaving for San Francisco, where I'd never been before. She first thing she said was, "Are you in a cult? Like, you just can't like wrap your head around.
Right.
Why would you leave this place?
Right.
Yeah,
the fact that we're so lucky to live in a city that we do, and you and I probably have, I don't know, hundreds and hundreds of people we could call right now if we needed something or wanted to have a beer with somebody or whatever. And I think there's pros and cons to living, in cities and more rural areas. But
well, you live in not only the city but the neighborhood. Like, if I could choose anywhere in the state of Colorado to live, it would be Baker.
Yeah, it was pretty touch and go for a little bit. I didn't think I was going to be able to stay there.
Yeah.
Was moving out of my apartment in 2022 and wanted to stay in that neighborhood, but prices have gone up so much, like in any cool area, in any cool city. And it was really competitive. And that's just talking about the rental market, not even buying anything, but got lucky and love the place I'm at and love the neighborhood I'm at. But yeah, it's great there. Our music community and scene has definitely changed a lot, but that one there is trying to hold on.
Yeah.
And I want to be there for it.
Yeah. Tell me about this new record and your kind of evolution, from that Drive-By Truckers, messy, dirty sound to this new 40 Grit.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of more produced and warm.
That's part of I feel like the more you learn, the more tools you have to use in this creative space. It kind of tends to go that way, doesn't it? A little more produced, maybe a little more warm. Everything was done with a lot more intent on this. And I wanted it to be, I wrote these songs so I could play them solo, at a venue or with the full band. And I want them kind of produced that way. But I also wanted it to be more about the songs and less guitar hooks, and I wanted the melodies to be the hooks and the song itself, and I didn't want a lot of solos and with that, so I just wanted to be very dynamic, and a lot of textures and a lot more picturesque, I guess, and feel like you're seeing a lot more of it. And some of the older stuff was just more like
in your face.
Yeah, that's a very good way of putting it. Yeah.
It's sure. Also, the new stuff is more sentimental and romantic in like a sly way. So you've come from, I got something for you and it's not my 22, to like, let's have a date night. You know what I mean?
That's so funny. That's very well said. No, and I agree 100%. And that was the intent. And that's maybe more where I am too. As a human, I'm less maybe angry, or maybe angry about other things, but more trying to write in my songs from a place of appreciation and gratitude in those ways, and less like going after somebody or a certain idea. And it's also the first time I think that stuff I felt like I wasn't as those songs that you kind of do when you're not maybe a great singer or a great guitar player, it is a little more in your face. But the better you get at being a performer and a songwriter and a singer and a guitar player, it's like it allows you to go in these maybe avenues you weren't able to execute earlier on.
Yeah. Well, talk about your voice a little, because I feel like your voice is this singular thing that is bison bone or chicken gum, whatever you want to call it. But like throughout the evolution of your sound, there's still your voice, no matter what you're doing. Like, this is Courtney.
Yeah, I think if I can keep that, but also progress in a way that it gets better and hopefully a lot better with time, that way it has opportunity to engage with people and connect people in a different way. Yeah. So it's not so in your face. Right. But it's still me telling the stories, right? Exactly. And people can relate to that, but then it maybe it allows people to be able to want to listen to it more often. Yeah.
Well, it's ironic that you say it's always me telling the story, because you have this song that sounds like it's from the perspective of like a 60-year-old man. And I'm really interested in that song.
Yeah, that kind of ties into a lot of the things we're talking about. That's essentially a story about my old man. Yeah. Like, that's his life. That's him narrating the story. Yeah. And it was a way, even with the title of it, Blue Collar Hard, a way of me. I don't work in the labor force anymore. The only thing I use my hands with to cook and garden and play guitar, right? Yeah. But he does body repair, and he's in his 60s, and he knows that world. And it was my way of really portraying, like we were saying earlier, like, these are people that are human beings and aware, and maybe they don't make the same decisions I do, but they're not all, it's not the way they may be portrayed in society now and in the media. Yeah. And it's definitely, there's plenty that I don't agree with, but that was also my way of like relating and getting in the mindset of that, and also showing that with the character with a little bit of awareness. Yeah, exactly. And also, it was also my way of going, kind of taking one thing I'm still fairly angry or jaded about is like these pop country or Nashville songwriters where there's like 4 or 5 in a room, and none of them have lived in a small town. They don't live in a small town. They don't have that experience, but they think that's what the hot thing is right now. And I was like, well, I'll show you how to write a song about being from a small town, because I know it. And maybe, that's never going to make me a gold record, but it's also cathartic for me, which is the main reason why we do what we do, right? Yeah, yeah. So give me your 3rd and 4th albums, if you will. And I wanted to ask, do you think any of these 5 albums would be on your dad's list if he had 5? I don't think so. No. I don't think so. Yeah.
Would he like any of them?
He would like the J.J. Kell one for sure. Yeah. The Towns, there's a Towns one. I guess I'll just do that, can be next.
Which one?
The Towns record. Towns, Van Zandt. Yeah. That one. It kind of goes back to what you were talking about. He has a lot of dark songs, but there's so many sweet songs on that record. Columbine, I'll Be Here in the Morning, where it's just very about him and his partner and their life together. And I feel like so many people can relate to that. That's not as dark as some of his other ones, even though I think Waiting Around to Die is on that one as well. But
that's one of my favorite just direct blatant drug references in a song ever. His name is Codeine, and he's the nicest thing I've ever seen. It's like anybody who listens to that is like, oh, that's sweet, you know. It's
kind of like Warren Zevon's Carmelita. You
yeah.
know?
Oh, that's a good comparison.
Yeah. I love both of those songs for lots of reasons.
Oh, but now I'm out of prison. I got me a friend at last. He don't drink or steal or cheat or lie. Oh, his name's Codeine. He's the nicest thing I've seen. Well, together we're gonna wait around and die. Yeah, together we're gonna
But this next one is definitely not one he's probably even heard or listened to. But if he did, I think he would like it. But Yola Walk Through Fire.
Oh, wow. This is very recent.
Yeah, probably the only one that's recent on the record. But I wanted, like, that is a very alt country record to me. There's a lot of fiddle and a lot of pedal steel guitar, and a lot of the guitar style and tone is very alt country with this great
and she's
pop
English,
singer, British,
right?
Yeah. And just a great singer. But then I hope she makes another one like that.
Yeah.
Her last one wasn't quite like that. Still good in its own right, but that record was like, very alt country, but with a like pop ethos to it, which is like very fun for me.
Standing on the side of the river, staring across the great divide, I'd give all my gold and silver just to get to the other side.
So we are members of a secret group called the Zeus. Zeuses? I don't know. What's the plural of Zeus?
I didn't think we were supposed to talk about it.
What happens at Zeus? And the way that this popped up was that our partners were already friends, and they had their goddess nights, and we were like, well, if you're going to do that, we got to have Zeus night. So,
because us guys, we got to have everything.
Yeah, got to have everything. Yeah. So, your lovely girlfriend, Taylor, she says, I asked her, is there anything to add? Is there any like insider information and insider questions I should ask Court? And one of the things that she said was he's an expert at alt country trivia, So I'm going to put you on the spot here.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, I guess it depends on how literal we're being with this genre.
Yeah, this is like, that's a good point too. Like, what's alt country? So, what kind of cigarettes does Tyler Childers smoke on the roof in Feathered Indians?
Oh man, that is a great question. That is a great question.
It just popped into my head. I was like, this is...
Oh, if you gave me a second, I could probably rewind. Maybe
an hourglass.
Maybe we keep talking, it'll pop in my head. Yeah.
All right.
I feel like it's right there on the tip of my tongue. It's funny you bring him up. We just had my dad and I were just talking about him and about, his fan base and how he's obviously a very progressive guy.
Well, look at this recent video about a same-sex relationship, which is
right, essentially inspired by his cousin. Beautiful video, beautiful song.
Yeah.
But I know people in certain parts of the country are probably, canceling him like the chicks. And
they're probably pouring out their Bud Lights and and burning their Tyler Childers album.
Yeah, and they're in their head, which I think is funny, the same way about Jason Isbell. They're like, they think these guys just wake up someday and start being like this. They're like, he wasn't like this before. Like, he turned on us or whatever. And it's like, you weren't listening. You weren't listening to the songs.
Yeah, it's not like you're friends with this person or sitting down in a room.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you were, you would have known. But also, again, if you would have maybe paid attention to the lyrics, you would have seen some of that, you know, especially in Isabel's case, for sure, you would have.
Yeah. You're just skirting this trivia question. That's all that's happening right now. You're just stalling.
I'll say I don't know for now, but I think
it might
pop in my head. But that's no, I love that question. Yeah. He's great.
Yeah. Have you thought of selling your songs, like trying to write songs for other people and saying, hey, this might be good for you?
I would love to, because I really love that process, the writing process. Yeah. And I almost don't always have the budget to turn out records or recordings as fast as I write them. Yeah. I think more of that will start happening with this record. I hope this EP, where I can start, diving into my publishing a little more and hopefully having opportunities to write songs for other people. That would be great. I think these songs on the EP would, if any, these probably any of the 5 on here would work well for that.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know if it's showing up on the recording, but there are hawks that, since I've been living here and working upstairs, they just circle. They're hunting in the park.
I heard them, but it was kind of nice.
Yeah.
It's pretty comforting.
Yeah. And I see them all day. And yesterday was the first time that one of them just sat down right outside my window. It was just right there.
What's he on?
What's he on?
Yeah, what's he getting? He's found something.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like maybe he found a good place to hunt.
Right. Yeah.
From. It was nice though.
He just knows there's plenty of things coming by that area.
Yeah. Well, there's also, you can look directly into these baseball fields, so maybe he was just watching some baseball.
Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
He's got maybe get some food and watch some baseball.
Yeah, yeah. Tell me about the recording process for this new record, and also what are your plans with it? When does it come out? And
the first single, I don't know when you'll put this out, but the first single will be out the end of August.
Oh, okay.
So either the latest will be September 1st, that Friday, but anytime within the next 3 weeks. So
it's got like 7 songs on it?
5.
Okay.
Yeah. And then the full record will be out, or the full EP will be out October 20th, I think it's the date. So album release show at Skylark, October 27th. That's already booked.
Yeah.
So anytime, either the 20th or the 27th, the EP will come out. But I want it to come out the 20th, so people have a week with it before the show. I've always kind of lined them up the day of, which is nice because you get that one full day of celebration for it. But then after that, it's like, okay. So I figure if I release it a week before, that's a nice celebration. People have a week. We have a week to kind of have it with time with press and stuff. And then the actual album release show.
And what's the name of the record?
40 Grit.
40. Oh, this was one of my questions. What is 40 Grit?
It's sandpaper. So 40 Grit is one of the toughest sandpapers there are. And so it goes back to the Blue Collar Hard song, but there's also a line in the last song on the EP called It's All the Same. And it references, can we fix it with 40 Grit? And essentially, can we fix it with a shit ton of hard work?
Yeah.
Or do we just give up? You know? And so I thought that was a nice kind of overarching theme for the record. But yeah, it's just rough sandpaper. Yeah, I learned from my dad when I sanded my first truck. It's like he bought it. I paid him for it with pretty much sweat equity.
Yeah.
He's like, you can have it if you put enough hours working on it to add up to, what it cost me. And so we sanded it together and painted it together. And it was an 84 Ford Ranger.
Wow.
So I learned some of that stuff. I was changing oil and changing tires and, some labor on cars before I was 16, but not much after that.
Yeah.
Definitely not much. I could know a lot more about cars if I wanted to, but there's, I was too busy playing guitar and reading books and playing sports, and you can only do so much.
And you have the same rhythm section on this record as the past 2?
Yep.
Wow.
Yep.
you guys are just locked in together.
Feels good. I think I noticed this time recording with them that they have made me a better musician, a better guitar player. Because, when you're young and you go and record and you're playing with a click, and it's easy to get off or it's easy to get distracted.
Yeah.
Obviously, you're one of the best at it.
No, I'm one of people are constantly contacting me saying, I love your drumming. I've seen you play Gas Pops and Clay and all this stuff, and I want you to play on my album. I'm like, I'm the worst studio drummer you could imagine it. Well, I guess you don't want me on your
Yeah, I guess I haven't played with you. When I watch you, it feels like you do it, but I guess you're so good, you're just going with the tempo, like there's plenty of songs like the Rolling Stones do where they start at,
right. That's
and then
true.
it builds up, and it wouldn't be the same if they tried to stay at that same
I'm
BPM.
terrible with the click because I'm not feeling it. I just have this pressure to go with the click instead of my internal time or following Clay, because his time's not perfect. And we're
Right.
just like flowing. And then you sit down in the studio and say, okay, play along to this click. And I'm like, I'm super ADD and all of this. So if you're listening, you don't want me to play on your album. You do.
Noted. My drummer is really good on the click, which has made me a better guitar player and a better rhythm musician.
Yeah.
I would get nervous about going in the studio and playing guitars when it's like, if it's full band, you're fine. But when it's just you and the click, it's like, oh man. Or you speed up and throw them off a little bit, or we got to start over type of thing. But this time around, it was not like that. I could tell it was a big difference in my level just by playing with them. And I'll notice, like, even if I don't get off, I'll notice, like, oh, I'm slightly pushing or pulling and then settle back down, take a breath. And, like these adjustments you can make in there without it really changing anything. I don't know. I also think, like, it's nice to record without a click because you can go in these ways that the song's taking you. And I know those producers that definitely believe in not recording with a click. But I think for my budget and how much we're trying to do in a short amount of time,
if you can nail it with a click, then do it.
Because that way you can go overdub and do that stuff.
Right.
And, so I think it makes sense for us. If we had a week or 2 weeks, then maybe we wouldn't use it, or depending on who we were working with. So but I definitely know it's made a better musician. My guitar player, Eric Tate, has a studio at the edge of Denver and Arvada.
Okay.
And it's called /O. And before COVID, they would host a lot of shows there. It's kind of like this way of Levon Helm's place, where it's like this barn type thing, where you can record and play shows at and rehearse and do all of that. It's great. So he played guitar on it and engineered it and produced it, and it's his spot. So that was my first time making a record with somebody that's actually in the band and not having an outside producer on it, which was really interesting. But I think it probably made us a better band.
He sounds like the MVP.
He is.
Yeah.
He sings a little on it, plays slide, and when I was doing all the vocal takes, it's just him and I, and he's managing a lot of stuff. There'd be even sometimes he's like, "Do you want to do this? You want to come over and do this part?" And I'm like, "Sounds like you got it." Sounds like you can do it.
So the album release party show at Skylark is October
27th.
Is this what day of the week? Is
Friday. Friday night.
October 27th.
Yeah.
I'll be there, and I hope that everyone listening will be there.
I hope so too. I can't wait to see everybody there. I can't wait for everybody to hear it.
But we still need your fifth and final album.
Yeah, this one is same kind of alt country type Midwest Heartland rock, but Songs Ohio, the Magnolia Electric Company record.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it was. These were really hard. There's like a lot of that type of thing where it's like Uncle Tupelo or Sunvolt or whatever, but these guys were just different enough. So yeah, really, there's a lot of good ones on that are dark and sad, but also will make you laugh. It's a cool record.
The whole place is dark.
John Prine used to say that a song should make you laugh and cry and think. Like those three things.
For sure, and I agree. And there's definitely plenty of John Prine records I would have seen, but it feels like when I saw the list a while back, there was about almost every person was picking a John Prine record.
Well, the other person who picked
do it.
Songs Ohio was Stealth from the Lumineers also picked. But was it a different record?
It was a different record. It was a different record. This record that I picked was like the transition of him going from Songs Ohio to Magnolia Electric Company, where they got the name from that record. But yeah, that one surprised me. I was like, when I heard that, I was like, oh, I thought, it's like one of those things you're like, I thought I was the only one in
exactly.
the whole world that listened to this band.
So I'm going to lead you into this trivia answer with my really
I'm curious.
Shitty singing.
Okay.
You know, looking over West Virginia, smoking.
I don't know it. You got
Spirits.
To tell me. Yes, American Spirits. Yes.
Smoking spirits on the roof.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh man. Yeah, that guy is. He's his music and his shows have changed a lot. You've seen him recently. I think wrote about it recently, but it's been
The first set was him and the Food Stamps, and it was
a
just
killer band. They're so fun.
Just amazing country / alt country / bluegrass, and then he walked up the steps at Red Rocks into maybe the 12th row, like near the soundboard, and just had a microphone and a guitar and sang like 4 songs in the middle of the crowd. Went backstage and there was like a 15-minute intermission or something. Came out in a suit, and the Food Stamps are all in suits, and then they brought out like a 15-piece like auxiliary band with all this different stuff and did a gospel set. And then that was the week or even the day that the Can I Take My Hounds to Heaven album came out, and they played the whole record. It was just spectacular.
I love that song, and that definitely reminds me of my old man, because he showed Beagles when we were growing up.
Oh yeah.
So take them to field trials kind of thing. So like Take My Hounds to Heaven. That's always been. I like that song. There's another one on that record, True in God, that he does really good live, and you're like, that boy can sing.
Yeah. He sounds to me, and this might be outlandish, but like a mixture between Hank Williams and Kurt Cobain. It's like these two things to me.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense. I can see that, especially like that way.
He kind of screams.
Yeah, and also like he does for sure. Especially like the way Kurt sang on that Unplugged, kind of more like that, almost that way. Yeah, him. Yeah, that's a really good.
Like the In the Pines scream. Yeah.
Right, and also I could see, like, I'm sure because of his age, that he grew up listening to both of those people a lot.
Yeah. Well, I'm hoping that your old man listens to this interview, and that maybe you two sit down and listen to Can I Take My Hounds to Heaven together. Yeah. On a road trip or something.
I think I've already sent it to him on YouTube, so I'm sure he's all about it. But awesome. I'm hoping I can't wait for my folks to hear the new record.
Thank you so much for sitting down with me, and the next Zeus night's got to be at your place.
Yeah, we can do a listening party over there, and it'll be fun.
Yeah,
I miss those guys.
Thanks so much, Courtney.
Yeah, thank you.
I'll give you another hour, then I gotta run, I gotta fly away.
That was Courtney from Bison Bone, which is celebrating the release of the new album 40 Grit at the Skylark Lounge in Denver on Friday, October 27th, with opening act the Patty Fiasco, the very well-known Fort Collins area group. Like I mentioned, Courtney and I are part of this funny Zeus Club. We are very familiar with some ladies who do goddess nights and, dress like Stevie Nicks and do tarot cards. So we Zeuses thought we'd get together and watch action movies and drink whiskey. Always the whiskey. It's easier than just waiting around to die. We also sometimes eat food provided by the amazing savory cuisines. Speaking of the generous sponsor of this episode. All right. I will see you right here next Monday as usual for another episode of Mile High Stash.
So you wanna rise above duality, you wanna transcend day and night. Yes, I'm old-fashioned, I just don't share your passion for ever-changing eternal twilight. Go on and give oblivion a shot. Go on and fade to gray if you got to.